Chapter 3. Cale. I hesitated at the gate. The school was easily the fanciest thing I had ever seen. "You'll be fine," Alara said, giving my arm a quick squeeze, apparently sensing my hesitation. "Gran says the principal already knows you're coming." "Don't worry, Alara," I echoed. "I don't expect anything to happen here." We were directed to an administrative wing just off the main courtyard. A receptionist who looked barely older than Alara, with long pink hair and cute glasses, ushered us through polished doors into a long office that smelled faintly of old parchment and some sort of pipe smoke. Behind a carved desk sat the principal, an older man with silver hair tied back at the nape, his uniform immaculate but softened by the weight of years. His eyes, though, were sharp and assessing. Beside him stood the vice principal, younger in appearance, though still probably a century old by higher plane standards. Slim, sharp-nosed, her robes were tailored like a noble's suit of armour. She smiled thinly when we entered, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Cale Arcanus," the principal said, rising to extend his hand. His grip was firm, measured. "Welcome to Arclight Academy. You've had a difficult journey." "That's one way to put it," I said. His mouth twitched, as if he appreciated the understatement. "You'll find we are a place for rebuilding as well as learning. Knight Captain Vanta spoke highly of you." I glanced up. So the captain had called ahead. I hadn't asked him to. The 34th Warden cohort had kept me alive longer than I deserved, but I hadn't expected them to smooth my way into a school full of nobles, celebrities, and rich merchants' children. The vice-principal's voice cut in, cool and precise. "It is highly unusual for a student of your age to be placed into the sophomore year." Her eyes flicked over me like I was a report with errors she was determined to correct. "We will expect you to work doubly hard to integrate. Arclight is not a place for lingering." The principal gave her a look, gentle but firm, and gestured toward a chair. "You'll find the pace here rigorous, but you won't be alone. Many students enter from diverse backgrounds. We welcome all who strive." I sat, enduring their questions. Basic things, my ambitions, my readiness, whether I understood the Academy's expectations. I gave short answers. Yes, I'll try. It felt like being briefed before a mission, except this time the mission was mana theory, magical transformation, and etiquette instead of raiding, assaulting, and armed escort. At last the principal nodded. "Very well. You'll join the sophomore cohort, Professor Holden's class. He is particular, but fair." The vice-principal's thin smile returned. "Do try not to cause disruptions, Mr. Arcanus." I stood, resisting the urge to salute. "Yes, ma'am." A student aide escorted Alara and me through the halls. The corridors gleamed with enchanted murals that shifted as we walked. Battle scenes, discoveries, moments from the Academy's long history. Floating lamps bobbed overhead, their glow steady as heartbeats. Alara kept close until we reached a branching hall. She stopped, hugging her crystal interface tighter. "This is me. You'll be fine, right, Cale?" "Of course, Alara," I said. "Don't worry about me." She gave me a quick, nervous smile before peeling off toward her own classroom. The aide stopped outside a heavy carved door. "Here we are. Sophomore Class 1, homeroom. Professor Holden is already expecting you." I nodded. My palms itched. The aide slipped away, leaving me alone with the door. Inside, 30 pairs of eyes turned toward me. The lecture hall was tiered, desks spaced evenly toward high windows that spilled sunlight across rune-etched illustration boards and Takina projectors. Students sat in neat rose nobles with polished uniforms, merchant kids whispering behind jeweled hands, and a handful of quieter faces that watched without comment. At the front stood Professor Holden, a man who looked stern and solid, anywhere from 30 to 70 depending on how you judged him. He carried the kind of presence that filled a room. His suit was dark, his expression stern but not unkind. He didn't waste words. "Class," he said, his voice cutting through the whispers, "this is your new classmate. Introduce yourself, Mr. Arcanus. Dozens of eyes burned holes into me, some curious, some dismissive, a few already measuring. I cleared my throat. Cale Arcanus, sophomore. Short, to the point. Sharing more than that with these people didn't seem prudent. The room rippled with murmurs. A couple of nobles smirked, whispering about my age, my appearance, maybe even my smell. A girl in the back tilted her head, studying me with open curiosity. Most looked away, already writing me off. Professor Halden didn't smile. He studied me the way a smith studies a blade, checking for weight, flaws, and sharpness. And then he said, flat and unyielding, "Mr. Arcanus, remove the glamour." The room went still. Every eye snapped back to me. Gasps broke out. Whispers flared. Someone laughed sharp and disbelieving. I froze, my throat locked, my hands curling into fists at my sides. Shit. Halden's gaze didn't waver. This is Arclight Academy. We don't hide here. Magic requires focus and honesty, neither of which you'll achieve if you cloak yourself from your classmates. The silence stretched. I felt the weight of 30 stares pressing into me. And for the first time since I'd walked into the room, I had no idea what to do. Chapter 4. Rada. If there's one thing Arclight Academy doesn't do, it's surprise enrollments. Transfers are basically a myth at Arclight. Okay, that's probably dramatic, but hear me out. You might see a guest science in a while if two noble houses are trying to secure an alliance or smooth over a political slight. Occasionally, a celebrated spell performer comes and goes, bards of illusion, ritual prodigies, or mana idols whose patrons insist they keep up appearances between tours and convocations. Sometimes a master's disciple of aura or arcanum drifts in under special dispensation, training here for a term before vanishing back into whatever closed circle they belong to. But even then it never happens quietly. There are announcements, formal welcomes, ceremonial introductions, gifts exchanged in public halls so everyone knows exactly how rare and important the event is, even if it happens more often than the Academy likes to admit. So when the whispers started in the cafeteria that morning, there's a transfer student, nobody believed it. When people swore it was a sophomore transfer into Class 1, half the year thought it was a prank. By the time I made it to Halden's lecture hall for homeroom, the entire place was buzzing. "Do you think it's a girl?" One of the girls in the front row asked her friend, clutching her rune-sketched tablet like it might give her answers. "I heard Celia Vane might be coming to our school." "That's crazy," the other giggled. "She's way too popular right now. There's no way she's coming back to school." She leaned in and lowered her voice. "It's probably another guy. How boring." "Unless he's handsome." That got half the girls giggling and leaning forward like the universe owed them a mysterious prince to spice up second term. Meanwhile, the guys weren't much better. "Bet it's some rich merchant's kid who couldn't cut it at the Aura College," muttered Darren Vale as he dropped into the seat next to me. Darren was tall, loud, and always convinced he knew more than he did, which was impressive, considering he was an idiot. My friend, but still an idiot. It's dumb to establish your core too early. Everyone knows the closer you are to 20, the better your chances of developing more than one. Meikle Thorne slid into the row on my other side, noble crest stitched on his uniform like it had a personality of its own. He snorted. "That's wrong. Establishing your core closer to 15 gives you a far better chance of stabilizing it. You can't develop a second core if you never manage the first. As for the transfer, it's probably another commoner. Scholarship kid. We could use more of those. We don't need more pretty boy nobles." I rolled my eyes. "You two sound terrified he might actually be better looking than you." Darren jabbed me in the shoulder with a grin. "Someone as handsome and charming as myself would never be worried about my place in civilized society." I raised an eyebrow. "I feel like you practiced that." He ignored me. "What about you, Raid? I bet you're already planning how to recruit him for your dungeon team." "Please," I said. "I only party with reliable players. I don't need some mystery newbie dragging down my DPS." They laughed, But the truth was I was curious. Really curious. Not because of the gossip, but because new students meant new variables. And in dungeon games like in life, variables could break the meta. The chatter in the room swelled. "What if he's from a lower plane?" one girl whispered. "Like the Wastes, wouldn't that be crazy?" "Probably someone who deferred enrollment," another scoffed. "You girls are overthinking this." Meanwhile, the guys argued about whether he'd have noble blood, whether he was good with a sword, or if he'd even formed a corps yet. Nobody actually knew anything, which made the whole exercise pointless, though apparently speculating was more fun than knowing. Go figure. Then the door at the front of the hall opened. Professor Holden strode in, his long coat snapping behind him. He was tall, with streaks of grey in his black hair and an expression that looked permanently carved into a scowl. You could always tell when Holden was in a mood, because even the nobles shut up. Today nobody needed telling. The room went silent before he even cleared his throat. "We have a new student joining us today," Holden said. His voice was like a sword being drawn sharp, metallic, final. "Unusual circumstances, but you'll treat him as one of your own." He turned toward the door. "Come in!" Every head swiveled, even mine. The kid who walked in didn't look like much at first. Plain jacket, nondescript trousers, dark brown hair, short and neat. Ordinary features, the kind of face you'd forget the second you looked away. Muddy brown eyes, unremarkable lines. Actually, it was weirder than that. He wasn't just forgettable. He looked like someone who wanted you to forget him, if that was even possible. It was unsettling. He might have looked bland, but there were other things about him. He was tall, for one, broader in the shoulders than most of us, arms clearly strong beneath the uniform. The way he carried himself wasn't sloppy, like a scholarship kid who didn't know how to wear a uniform, or stiff like a noble trying too hard to impress. It was balanced, relaxed. The way you move if you've been in more high-pressure situations than classrooms. Whispers rippled instantly. "He's older. I heard he's 18, same as us. Who transfers into sophomore year?" Halden cut them off with a glance that could silence an avalanche. "Class," he said. "This is your new classmate. Introduce yourself, Mr. Arcanus." Cale gave a short nod. "Cale, sophomore." That was it. No speech, no noble lineage, no charming anecdote. Just the bare minimum. "What is with this guy?" Half the class groaned. You could practically hear the disappointment from the girls in the front row. Darren leaned closer and muttered, "Called it. Merchant kid for sure. Zero charisma. Poor guy'll probably die a virgin." Meikle smirked. "No wonder he got kicked out of his old school." I wasn't so sure. There was something about the way he stood there, shoulders straight, eyes steady but searching, like he was already marking exits and cataloguing threats, that made my stomach twist. It felt like the opening of a cutscene in a game I knew was about to change everything. Halden studied him for a long moment. Too long. The silence stretched until the back of my neck prickled. Then, in that razor-edged voice of his, Halden said, "Mr. Arcanus, remove the glamour." The room exploded. "Wait, glamour? He's hiding something." "I knew it. Nobody looks that plain on purpose." "Bet he's ugly under there." "No, bet he's scarred, like waist scarred." The girls' voices overlapped, sharp with curiosity. The guys jeered, already mocking. It was chaos-like the start of a boss fight before the raid had decided on a strategy. Cale didn't move. He stood at the front of the room, jaw tight, eyes locked on Halden. Halden didn't blink. "Mr. Arcanus, remove the glamour." The room fell silent again. 30 students leaning forward at once, hungry for the reveal. Cale froze. For a split second, he looked surprised, and it made him look younger. Halden continued. "This is Arclight Academy. We don't hide here. Magic requires focus and honesty, neither of which you'll achieve if you cloak yourself from your classmates." Cale exhaled slowly, like he was resigning himself to something he'd hoped to avoid. Then he let go. The glamour peeled back like smoke burned away by wind. His plainness dissolved, edges sharpening into definition. The gasp that rolled through the room wasn't polite or rehearsed. It was raw. The guy standing in front of us could have stepped straight out of a cinema reel. Blue-black hair, uneven and wild in a way that should have looked sloppy but didn't. It looked dangerous, like he'd just walked away from a fight and hadn't bothered to fix it. Then there were his eyes. Storm-glass violet, deep and shifting, pulling your gaze in and refusing to let go. And his face-sharp lines, clean angles, the kind of structure illustrators and directors dream about. This wasn't a basic noble pretty. This guy he was. Magnetic. In a bad boy, you shouldn't stare but you can't look away kind of way. He wasn't just handsome. It was devastating. Like star power devastating. The classroom boiled over. Oh my God! He's gorgeous. Called it totally a noble bastard hiding his face. No way he looks like Darius Lane, the mercenary king. Even Darren coughed, looking like he'd swallowed his tongue. Tsh! So what if he's got good hair? Meikle sneered louder than usual, covering his own reaction. Barbarian chic. I give it a week before he gets expelled for fighting. I barely heard them. I'd seen characters like this before, just not in real life. In games, the hidden stat protagonist always drops in like this. Everything about his story is ordinary until it's revealed to be extraordinary. I took note of his features. Blue-black hair with a straight jawline and skin that was absolutely flawless. His most notable feature, however, was the storm-glass eyes. I think I am the only one who knew what storm-glass eyes meant. He had mana, a lot of it. This was straight out of a power fantasy, except it was happening in my lecture hall. Awesome. So freaking awesome. This guy is definitely going to be my friend. Halden gave the smallest nod, like a general satisfied that a soldier had followed orders. Better. Now why you'd hide a face like that, I'll never know. Sit. We begin. Cale's jaw worked once, but he said nothing. He turned, scanning the rows. Every seat was suddenly either too full or too empty. People shifted, muttered, suddenly desperate not to look like they cared. Then his eyes landed on our row, halfway up Darren on one side, Meikle on the other. My pulse jumped. Each step he took felt louder than it was, heavy with the weight of everyone's stares. Girls whispered behind their hands. Guys muttered insults too low to be brave. He stopped at our row. The seat directly behind me was empty, next to the window overlooking the central plaza. He dropped into it without a word, back straight, shoulders squared, like he hadn't just shattered the entire room's expectations. For a second, all I could do was picture his messy blue-black hair, the line of his shoulders, the relaxed way he set his hands on the desk. Then Darren leaned in, whispering through clenched teeth. Guess the transfer thinks he's hot stuff. Meikle smirked. He'll get chewed up. Wait and see. Maybe they were right. But something in my gut told me this wasn't a side character. Not a cameo. Not a background extra. No, this was a main character drop. And the rest of us had just been cast as supporting players.
Elara. I tried to focus on the spell diagram on the board. The professor's chalk tapped out each rune pattern with meticulous rhythm, the lines of the glyphs curling into something elegant and precise. Everyone else had their quills scratching, or their rune tablets glowing with annotations. Mine stayed blank. All I could think about was my brother, Cale. He'd walked into Arclight Academy for the first time today, into Halden's lecture hall. I should have been paying attention to arcanum circles and stabilization ratios, but my mind kept drifting down the corridor, wondering how he was doing. Was he nervous? Was he standing awkwardly at the front of the class, trying not to make eye contact? Or was he holding himself stiff and soldier straight, the way he always did now? I chewed my lip until a sharp whisper cut through my thoughts. Did you hear? 2 seats over, Celine Dior was leaning across the aisle, her blonde curls bouncing as she tried to keep her voice low, which meant, of course, that everyone heard it. Celine never truly whispered. The transfer to the sophomore year, she hissed. Apparently Professor Halden made him drop a glamour at the start of class. My heart lurched. A glamour? The girl Selene was talking to gasped and smacked her quill down. You're joking. Who comes to school wearing a glamour? That's awful. What if he was hideous underneath? Celine giggled, eyes bright. That's what makes it juicy. Half the girls in his section are already saying he's, well, let's just say not hideous. A laugh bubbled from behind me. Mara Kellen, who had been sketching arcanum formulas in the corner of her notebook, leaned back in her chair. Not hideous? What are they 5 years old? Just say he's gorgeous and be done with it. Celine rolled her eyes. That's not what I said. That's exactly what you implied, and it functions the same. Mara shot back. She glanced at me, sharp-eyed and smirking. So, Ilara, you going to confirm this rumor, or are you going to sit there pretending you don't know him? Heat rushed into my face. I what? Don't play dumb. Celine pounced immediately. You told us last week your brother was enrolling. Your brother who came back from the dead. Anyone paying attention knows the transfer is your brother. Half the class twisted in their seats to look at me. I wanted to sink through the floor. Yes, I muttered. The new transfer is my brother. The collective squeal of delight made my temples throb. Celine clapped her hands together like a child handed a present. Ilara, why didn't you tell us your brother looks like a stage icon? Mara smirked. Probably because she knew you'd react like this. React like what? Celine demanded. Like you're about to carve his initials into your crystal interface. I groaned, pressing my palm to my face. I didn't even know what they were talking about. My brother did not look like a stage icon. He was quiet, plain, the kind of person people walked past without noticing. But apparently, he'd been wearing a glamour? What was going on? The gossip spread like fire. By the end of lecture, 3 different students had heard 3 different versions of the story. In one, Cale had ripped off his glamour in defiance and made the entire class swoon. In another, Halden had nearly expelled him for hiding it. In a third, my brother was supposedly a bastard son of a noble house, and the glamour had been hiding his identity from some of the seedier syndicates. None of them were true. At least, I think none of them were true. Damn. I hope none of these are true. The bell rang, but instead of scattering, everyone clustered around Celine. She was holding up her crystal interface. Its spirit glass lens was projecting a faint, glowing image above her desk. In the name of her beauty, someone recorded it! Celine squealed. Look, look, look! Mara raised an eyebrow. And here I thought we weren't allowed to record in class. Celine waved her off. Who cares? Watch. The image wavered, but it was clear enough. Cale stood at the front of Halden's lecture hall, plain and forgettable, the version I'd been living with for the past several days. Then Halden's voice cut through the projection. Remove the glamour. I held my breath. The image shifted. The plainness peeled away like smoke, features sharpening into something vivid and undeniable, blue-black hair, uneven and wild. Storm-glass violet eyes so deep they looked alive, shifting shades as he turned his head. His face sharper than memory, harder than childhood, but unmistakably his. The eyes I remembered. My chest tightened. That was him. Really him. Celine gasped so loudly the projection nearly flickered. Oh. Saints above, someone whispered. Where in the hell did this guy come from? Mara let out a low whistle. Yeah, not hideous. That might be the understatement of the century. Celine rounded on me, eyes wide. Ilara, why didn't you warn us he was... She flailed helplessly. That? I couldn't answer. Because the truth was I hadn't known. The recording ended, and the room exploded into noise. Did you see his eyes? He's definitely noble-born. No commoner looks like that. Maybe he's a knight trainee. Look at how he stands. You're right, he's too pretty. Pretty? He looks like trouble. Celine fanned herself dramatically and collapsed back into her chair. If I faint, someone catch me. Mara rolled her eyes, though she was smiling. You're all hopeless. He's not walking into your dorm to seduce you, Celine. He's Ilara's brother. Celine snorted. Well, not with that attitude, he won't. Think positive, Mara. That earned another wave of squeals and laughter. I sank lower in my seat, wishing for maybe the 100th time that day that I could vanish under a glamour of my own. By lunch, the recording had spread across half the academy. Every group we passed in the dining hall was whispering about the new transfer. Celine thought this was simply marvelous. "This is perfect," she announced, dropping her tray onto the table. "You're going to introduce us, right, Alara?" I choked on my water. "What?" "You have to," she insisted. "We're your friends. Friends introduce each other to gorgeous brothers. That's like basically the rules of feminism." Mara snorted into her soup. "I'm not sure you know what that word means." Celine narrowed her eyes. "Just because you're allergic to romance doesn't mean the rest of us can't enjoy it." "I'm not allergic," Mara shot back. "I just don't drool over every boy with decent hair." "Decent? Decent?" Celine pressed a hand to her chest. "Did you see him? Milan Hart is decent. Alara's brother should be on holoboards and on projection vids." "This poor guy," Mara said dryly. "No wonder he hid behind a glamour." I shoved a spoonful of stew into my mouth to keep from answering. The next period wasn't any easier. The whispers didn't stop, and people kept looking at me. I couldn't get the image out of my head, the glamour falling away, the blue-black hair, the storm-glass eyes. For 10 years I'd remembered him as soft, kind, laughing over pie, playing games with the cousins, always making room for me. The man in the projection wasn't soft. There was no warmth in his expression, no easy smile. He looked like a hurricane given flesh, and yet, those eyes. Those were the same eyes from my childhood. It was him. He was older for sure. He was most likely harder. That was probably a given. But it's still him. That was enough for me. "You really are back," I whispered to myself. "I missed you, brother."